So, you're interested in knowing the pros and cons of cybersecurity. So far on this channel, we've discussed lots of different things in cybersecurity, but we've not discussed the pros and the cons. It's definitely good to understand both sides before you jump into a field that you've not really been in before. With pros and cons, it can be quite different for a lot of people, so some of the pros that I've listed in this video can be cons for you, or vice versa, the cons can be something you see as a pro. So do take it with a pinch of salt and see what it means in your context and for your career path. I'll be using my own personal experiences and talking about some of the good days and some of the not so good days. We'll start off with the pros of jumping into cybersecurity, and I've bundled this up into three different sections. So firstly, choosing a career in cybersecurity can offer you a unique advantage of having a multitude of diverse career paths. There's so many different roles and specializations which you can dive into to see if it's something that aligns with your interests or strengths. So for example, you can do ethical hacking, incident response, you become a security analyst, you can work in policy. So there's so many different ones that can help you achieve what you want to do in your career. This not only means that you can easily switch roles within the field if something is not suiting your needs, but it also means and promotes continuous learning and growth in yourself, as it's something that you'd want to continuously upskill in and make sure that you can find the right place for yourself. That then also slightly leans into the next pro that we have, which is flexibility. So what I mean by flexibility is that you can easily work remote, or you can have opportunities that are available globally. So it's not something that restricts you to your local area of where you live. I mean, I myself have been working remote in cybersecurity for around 3 to 4 years now. That's not me saying that you will definitely get a remote job or come and work in cybersecurity if you want only a remote job. I'm just saying you'll probably find a lot of more remote opportunities compared to other roles in other fields. Further to this, depending on what position you're in, such as a SOC analyst, you might be working shifts, so you won't do a regular 9 to 5 job, and that can be seen as a pro or a con. So I've kind of got that in the middle, and I'll discuss it slightly more in the con section. Moving then on to our final pro, we have here the demand for cybersecurity. So as cybersecurity threats continue to grow in frequency and sophistication, businesses across the whole world are starting to recognize the critical importance of safeguarding their digital assets and sensitive data. So because of this, it's caused a massive surge in the demand for cybersecurity teams, and we saw this mainly after COVID when a lot of businesses were pushing their information digitally or online. And it's made cybersecurity professionals some of the most sought after and valued experts within the job market. So especially right now, it's not a field I see disappearing or going anywhere anytime soon, especially with the rise of AI, artificial intelligence, over the last few months. A lot of bad stuff is coming out of misusing that AI technology, like creating sophisticated cyber attacks that organizations will not even see coming. So the need for these teams will not disappear anytime soon, and you can see by this graph on the screen now, the national average for demand for cybersecurity analysts has increased from 2010 to 2023 by over 77%. And I promise you this is not a graph I made up myself, the link to the data will be in the description. But yeah, this proves a really big point and will ease a lot of you in terms of thinking whether cybersecurity is the future or not. That covers everything we have for the pros, so now let's move on to the cons of working in cybersecurity through what I've seen in my career and what I've heard online. The first con that we have here is quite 50-50, and I did mention it previously in the pro. It's the constant need for upskilling in terms of gaining certifications or working your way up the ladder. Now in cybersecurity there are lots of certifications which you can take, and as a beginner it can be quite overwhelming as you're just getting into a new field and you're being told you need Security Plus, you need SSCP, you need the CCNA by Cisco, and then as soon as you achieve those, someone will say, right, why don't you start working towards CompTIA, CISA Plus, or why don't you start looking at some GX certifications. So the constant need for upskilling is there, and that can be something that can lead to a bit of a burnout after a while, especially if you've been studying non-stop, which I know a lot of people around me in the cyberspace have been. They're doing certification after certification, even though it's not really required. Whereas if you attack it from an angle in the sense of what you're interested in, you only go for certifications where you just want to upskill in that area, it can be something that's a lot more easier for you to manage, where you're doing them now and then, say once a year or once every 2 years. It's completely up to you. So it's taken in context of how you want to implement your career. This slightly merges onto my next point, which is that cybersecurity can be quite high pressure or stressful at some times, as of course, cybersecurity attacks and incidents are 24/7. Unfortunately, the attackers do not take holidays or take time off on the weekends, so you can expect incidents and high priority incidents to be coming in at any time. So every day is different, and that can become quite stressful, especially if you are doing or handling multiple loads of work and then something comes in and throws everything out of the window because it requires your immediate attention. So if you're not good at handling multiple workloads or prioritizing, then it can get quite difficult for you. However, this can massively depend on the support system you have at work. If you've got multiple people that can also help you out or help out with an investigation, then that stress can be eased. And of course, that should be there and it should be available for you to speak up if getting or managing multiple workloads is getting difficult. Another point related to this, which can be worth mentioning, is the fact that when you're investigating an incident, sometimes you can miss something and that may get pulled upon later on, so it can cause you some stress. But it's nothing that's worth beating yourself up about because that's what it's all about. It's about learning and moving on from your mistakes. This then nicely leads us on to our final point, which is funding and the maturity of cybersecurity within the organization. So we'll split this up into two parts. I've not really heard this mentioned elsewhere online as I was doing a bit of research, but it was a big thing for me when I was working in cybersecurity. So I definitely wanted to mention this. And it's the funding that the organization will want to plow into the cybersecurity team itself, so that can determine what tools you use and how pressured you are, where if you're working by yourself or if the team has a big budget where they can hire multiple people to do multiple processes of work. And you might not realize it now, but it makes a massive difference in terms of your work in that company. So if you're using really good tools that are really effective in what they do, it makes your job a lot easier. Whereas if you have tools that are not really efficient or don't really do the job that they're supposed to do, it does make your work a lot harder. Just as an example, the company that I work for use one of the best email security systems out there as they can afford to do so. So that in turn makes my life a lot easier as it's dealing with the threats itself and dealing with a lot of the false positives before they get to me. Alongside this is also the maturity of cybersecurity within that organization. So if it's something new or fresh that they've not really done before, then they may not have their roles fully defined. So you can start to do a bit of everything rather than focusing on one specific thing like incident response or penetration testing within that organization. So it can get quite messy if it's something they've not really done before. Whereas if they're quite mature in their approach and they've been doing it for the last 5 to 10 years, then they may have roles more fully defined. So this can be quite a big con if you're at a beginning stage where you're joining a new company and things are not really that defined. You may also not even see this as a con because it's something you want to get in there, you want to start fresh with, and you want to start up and increase their maturity. So it just depends on how you view it and what your approach is for your career. As I said at the beginning, that's the case with the majority of these pros and cons. It just depends on how you want to view them. I'm simply implementing what I view as a pro and a con in your head for you to make that decision. And if that's been useful for you and you're looking to get started in cybersecurity, do check out my Get Started guide, which is linked within the description below. And you can also join my Discord where we discuss all things cybersecurity.